Good morning, party people. Let's start with our second part of the lecture. So let me share, and then I try to always go through the Canvas side so that I can show you where to find it. Remember that the home page for me is modules, so you always need to click on modules. We don't really care about this, and we have gone through, not interested in that. So I'm going to start with module one. So we've gone over the syllabus. We've talked about intro to crime. And then there's an interview here with Elizabeth Watson. She's from the Families of Homicide and Violent Crime Victims Support Network in the what's the word, in the state. And really interesting person and really cool work that they do. So if you are into victimology, she might be a good contact for you. So now, but she's embarrassed of her video. She told me that, like, she's like, I can edit it. I'll edit it. Like, it's perfectly fine. Like, you're amazing. But nope, no updates because I don't have the energy for that. We're going to talk a little bit about criminology and practice. So what this means is when we talked about what criminology is. It's like the before side of crime and why is crime happening and how are victims chosen and not just how can we prevent it, though that is such a large portion of it, but why is it even a crime to begin with? So there are lots of ways that you can apply your degree. I want to talk to you first about research. Almost everything right now is going to be some kind of mixed methods. It seems like there's a lot of mixed methods would be the qualitative, which would be interviews, observational, content analysis, something like that. And then quantitative is where we're doing the actual statistics or math side of it. Not that they're not being used in both, but a mixed method is giving us probably a more justified approach. So we are seeing that pop up quite a bit. You'll notice trends when you do your readings. And so we can look at that as we go. Lots of cybercrime. There are not very many ways that there's only a limited number of ways that people hurt each other. And online, they really just do it um, um, in the cyber world. But because it's new to us and for many other reasons, that's become a point of evaluation and a point of research. Cross discipline, we're looking at, like I said, the investigation process. Like, how are you going to investigate? And I think I told you this, but I worked with a man from Colorado. And when everybody's credit cards were stolen, his job, he's actually just a data miner, not just he's a data miner from the dark web and does some security stuff. Nothing with criminology, but just in talking to him, when all everybody's credit cards got stolen from Home Depot, he just numbers got stolen. He just went on the dark web and bought his number back for like $2. He's like, it was easier than trying to get Home Depot to do something about it. So he just bought it back, right? And so that would be a cross collaboration. There are some spatial and geospatial trends right now about where are things clustering, how are they clustering. This is just some research I did regarding dogfighting in Houston. And then there's advanced theory testing. We're looking a lot at this critical criminology sorry, my neck. So why is it a crime to begin with? And then who benefits and who doesn't? So we do see lots of technology changes, and you'll see that, like, even when we start to talk about these theories, from the time that they began to where we are now, the ability for us to test things from a using sophisticated technology, and probably what actually isn't sophisticated technology, but what it is for them, it's unbelievable. And when we look at the development of course, AI modules, etc., like my nephew does lots within right now he's doing security stuff, but it was with Tesla, he was looking at self-driving cars, blah, blah, blah. Well, what he's looking at with the AI, he's like, what it can create is unbelievable, what it truly can create. And so hopefully we can leverage that. But then again, we have this idea that AI as the models or uh, oh my gosh, like the home factories. I don't have a word for it. My brain is the end of the day. But they use an obscene amount of water, an obscene amount of water. So we look at this in terms of green crime, crimes against the environment. We're looking at which programs are effective and not effective. We already know that Scared Straight creates more offending. We know that the DARE program at the very best is neutral, at the very worst creates more offending. But that certain Big Brothers Big Sisters programs are phenomenal. We know that the GREAT program seems to be Great. And then we're looking at cross-national comparisons. So if you're going to read research right now, you're probably going to find much that is not specific to like North Carolina or the US. You're looking at cross-nationally, what are we seeing in groups and trends, um, culturally, geographically, and temporally. When we look at the top journals for criminology, this is from a while ago. It changes all the time. But this is just generally how they're ranked. There is a lot of contention about whether these are good or not good. But for your purposes, when you see something that comes from like one of these 20, top 25, 20, that's great. There are going to be more specialized journals, like let's say the Journal of Policing Decisions and Policymaking, right? Or something like that, right? I'm making that up, but something that specific is not going to be considered high ranked, but that's just because it's specialized. Just be aware that when you are looking at whether something is academic, you're looking for it to come from something like this, not something like Psychology Today. So if you choose to do research and if you find that you enjoy it, there's a couple paths to get there. One is through graduate school. So when you finish, maybe you choose to go into the work field. And by the way, it takes a long time to get a job. Post-graduation depression is real. It takes a long time to get a job. And that could be very challenging. That can be very challenging for many people. But some people will continue in school. And either way is a fine path. You choose what it is you want to do. But if you choose to continue in school, I just want to talk to you a little bit about what that is. And that's called graduate school. Graduate school generally is going to come in two forms. It's going to initially be a master's degree. So you finish your bachelor's degree, and then you would go for like about 2 years to get a master's degree. After the master's degree, you can get, and I don't recommend it unless your job requires it, but you can get a doctorate degree. This is the PhD. Now, if you know anybody who's a doctor, give them a hug because gosh, that's awful. The doctorate degree, let's start with the master's degree. The master's degree runs about 2 years if you're going full time, sometimes 3 years if you're not. It ends a few different ways. Really, it's about what do you end with? How can we show that you've learned what you're supposed to learn? And really, what you're learning to do, it's like an apprenticeship. You're learning to do research. You're learning to understand research. You're learning to be a criminologist. Right now, you're learning criminology. Here, you learn to be a criminologist. And so you take theory classes, you take stats classes, you take evaluation classes, you go through, and some of them are very specialized. I mean, I took classes on uh, sex offenders. You know, it was about sex offenders and sex offenses. And then you take that information and you put it together to create like your specialty area. It may not be what you stick with forever, but just what you're interested in at the time. And then you complete your research. You complete your own research. Sometimes it's an internship and you're researching within the internship program. Sometimes it's work experience. It just depends on where you are. They'll call it like a professional paper. But generally speaking, we would expect original research through something like a thesis. And thesis is probably the most common right now. At the end of a master's degree, you are eligible for many promotions. It is also in government jobs, federal jobs, it can replace some experience. So it'll say like a bachelor's degree plus 3 years experience or a master's degree. So it kind of fits in that realm. Um, Most of your classes, anyway, you develop a really strong relationship with the people that you're with, and you can apply to be like a graduate teaching assistant, a GA, a graduate teaching assistant, GTA, or a GRA, graduate research assistant. Teaching assistant is what we usually do here. A teaching assistant is somebody, and you've had them in your classes, they do the grading, they come in, we work on projects together, whatever it may be, and they're learning to teach. And then if they choose to go to the PhD program, they probably will teach. At the end of a master's degree, you can teach usually at community college levels, but not at a 4-year university typically. My job only requires a master's degree, but I'm actually technically considered temporary. So do what you will with that. A PhD or a doctorate degree is considered higher than a JD, which is a Juris Doctorate for law school, higher than an MD, which is what you would get for a medical doctor. This is considered the highest of the education that you can get. So this is when you become an expert in the field. This is who's going to be testifying in courts. This is who's going to be the ones that are teaching most of your classes. These are the people that are going to be able to answer or trying to answer some of these hard-hitting questions using their research. This can take 3 years if you are, I don't know, like Einstein. It actually took me 10 years, and it took me 10 years because of some, I was pregnant, my husband died, like there were other things that were involved, and I started it part-time. But when you finish this, and I think most people average around 5-ish, this time frame, it's similar to this master's degree where you take your classes, and then when you're in the thesis stage, all you do is your research. That's your job. Well, with a doctorate degree, you take a few classes, like advanced theory classes or advanced stats classes. I'm trying to think if I took anything. I mean, it wasn't very much. I think I only took 4 or 5 classes. Then it's all dissertation. It's all writing this, which is, sorry, my neck, which is essentially a book. It's hundreds of pages, and it is your original research, and it's framed in theory, and it has to be outstanding. And it is, it'll turn your hair gray, but when you're done, you're done. So this is something that mental health wise, I would say do not take on unless it's required for your degree. Master's degree, go for it if you're comfortable writing, etc. Either of these, though, if you are allowed to be a GTA, a TA, or an RA, you can get paid. So you would go to school full time, and then they will pay you to work part time for the university as as an RA or as a research assistant or a teaching assistant. The pay is different depending on where you are, what school you're at, their funding, and the state and what's allowed. Texas wasn't able to reimburse tuition, so they paid us more. Sometimes when you go, you don't pay tuition. So, you kind of can look at those options. It was enough for me to live off of while I was going to school. It wasn't a lot. It wasn't even close to a lot. I think it was still below the poverty line, but it did allow me to focus on my schooling in a more productive way. So we have our program here. It is a master's degree program with a social focus, of course, because we're a social crim department, but they expect it to take you a couple years if you're doing full-time, and about 6 semesters if you're doing part-time. Again, we generally expect the the thesis, but we're working on a little bit of transition and other ways for people to show their understanding. So there's a lot of flexibility in that for you, and Dr. Engelman is the person who's in charge of that here. If you're interested in psychology, which a lot of you seem to be, we have a psychology program here. I want to say that it's only a master's. Same with our prim, it doesn't go to a PhD. In those cases, you have to have certain qualifications if your degree is not psychology. So my bachelor's degree is psychology, and my master's and doctorate of criminal justice. Not criminology, but criminal justice. In these, there are some programs. My nephew's in a PsyD program right now, which is essentially a PhD program, but a practitioner's program for psychology. And basically, it isn't this, but if he fails out, he has a master's degree. It's a combined program. But man, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of support for whatever you're interested in through the associations. These are some that we have here that you can go to these conferences or you can meet people through them. But this is where all us nerds get together and we learn each other's research and what's going on and start collaborating and networking. It's really good because they have job opportunities there. There's a lot of subcommittees. A friend of mine, he was on the Korean Criminal Justice, part of the Korean Criminal Justice Club. Another was, corrections, and another was on death penalty abolition crew. Somebody was on death penalty advocacy. There is funding for this. The university will provide some of this for you. It's just a matter of finding it. So like this year, ASC, American Society of Criminology, I'm going to that meeting, hopefully. It's in DC. So I'll drive there, so I don't have to pay for flights. ACJS is in Philadelphia, but last year it was in Denver, so I did have to fly. So it just really depends. You can present your research there. There's lots of ways to do it, and we will always work with you. If you're interested in research, anybody wants to help you do that. However, you don't have to go to school. Like, continuing school isn't the end all be all. You already will have a bachelor's degree, and any degree is better than no degree because it shows that you can commit to something and that you know how to learn. You aren't restricted by your type of degree in most cases, because at no point is somebody going to say, Like, can you please explain to me the deterrence model from Warren Stafford on vicarious learning? And you're like, nobody's asking you that in your entire life. And so as we go through this and you're talking about your degree, what it's showing is that you have the ability to learn. So just because the degree, the place requires, I don't know, I mean, maybe not a marketing degree, I don't know how that would work, but learning how to sell yourself and learning how to know that the education is there. If you want to work at Target and you want to fold shirts and have that discount for the rest of your life, the thing about your degree is it gives you the choice. There's a mass difference between choosing to do it and having to do it. And so that's what this degree is going to provide for you. There are a million fields. I think I've shown you this before, and this is probably not even a fifth of what I can think of. But there's a lot of jobs, and they aren't always in agencies. Don't forget that criminal justice is law enforcement, courts, corrections. And then there's the victimology side, there's criminology, and then you have sociology. These are some links. They may not all be valid. I tried, but you can just sort of look at how the jobs that are set up. If I were to give you advice right now, it would be to start creating an Excel sheet that has your job, your title, how long you were there, where did you live, who was your manager's name, what were your roommates' name, what are their phone numbers, because all of that's going to come up when you go to apply for these because they do such extensive and annoying background checks, truthfully. So when you go through and we have all of that information already accessible, it's going to save you so much because you're never going to remember it, especially when you're changing apartments every semester, pretty much. The other thing too, though, is if you keep an eye on jobs, and let me see if I can pull it up. Oh, I think I just deleted it. Never mind. If you keep an eye on jobs that exist right now, then you may not find exactly what you want. It may not be something you qualify for, but if you see a job that you're like, dang, I want to do that. Like, I want to be a jury profiler. Then you keep watching the jobs and you see what they require so you can work toward it and you figure out what they pay and what they want so that you can plan yourself accordingly. So you don't not look at jobs because you're not ready. You look at jobs because it's important to use that information for your planning. So that's criminology in practice. And if you need anything, I know that was fast, but if you need anything, please, 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 we are always, always here for you. And we want things to be amazing. So, job shadow as much as you can, take people to coffee and learn about their jobs, ask everybody, have just questions always, always listen and have questions, and you will do excellently. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I'm going to record some more soon. So I probably will see you in the same outfit this evening. Oh.